Welcome to the Beyond Coaching Podcast. I've got with me today my co-host Max Ada, and joined with us we've got Zach Caswell of Optimus Barbell. Zach, welcome aboard, man. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you were an hour early today.
Yeah, I looked, I had it in my calendar for some odd reason, like twice. I put it in there at 10 my time, and then I was like, yo, are we doing this? And you're like, no, we're doing this in an hour. I'm like, oh, I'm an
Perfect.
idiot.
So you
But it's
rehearsed
fine.
everything, and it's going to
Yep,
be great.
Yeah,
easy. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm playing into the script.
he ChatGPT himself a
Definitely.
script beforehand. Make sure this is all good.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's like I want to shout out to Coach Logic every other sentence is what I programmed in.
Yeah,
So
easy.
dude, I mean, we've chatted a bunch of times now. We're going to be doing some work together with Coach Logic stuff, but man, you have two locations, you're in four high schools, you're in two universities, you have a developmental contract with USA Soccer, you do it all. How did this start? Give me like the 411. I know your background was interesting and to get into coaching. So let's just start there and get into how you're doing all that you're doing now.
Yeah, we used to live when my wife and I lived in Florida. I was still working in medical. Originally, I was working in basically a clinical engineer for Boston Scientific. So I would go into ORs and work on chronic neuropathic pain of the trunk and limbs and basically help neurosurgeons put in a spinal cord stimulator device. Um, After that, in Florida, I ended up leaving that job and I ended up working basically in physician contracts. So, like, my job was to buy out private practices into larger hospital systems and like basically do all sorts of things regarding that and physician services. And at the time, I was just lifting at this like random CrossFit gym, just weightlifting. I was a Division II college athlete, and I've always been doing like either some type of snatch or clean and jerk or something like that since like high school, all the way through college. So like I was familiar with things. I was lifting at this like 1,000 square foot CrossFit gym, and this guy was like, "Hey, would you like mind coaching, like doing a weightlifting class?" And I was like, I like to be honest, I was like, I don't really want to do it, but like if like this is what you need, like whatever you allow me to like max out in the corner randomly. So like
Nice.
cool. So I thought like three people were gonna show up, and literally 32 showed up on the first day in like a 1,000 square foot box.
What year was
Eh,
this?
2012,
Okay, wow.
2012 ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I saw that and I'm like, all right, well, there's like obviously a demand for this, right? Obviously, CrossFit was big at the time,
Yeah.
and weightlifting was just like starting to get out of the hockey rink phase and
Yeah.
like into the bigger markets. And so I just Googled weightlifting coaches in Florida, and like Danny from Seoul came up in Miami. There was a guy in Fort Lauderdale. There was Brian in Barrow and like Camargo in Orlando. So I was like, all right, well, I'll be the dude in West Palm. One gym turned into two gyms, turned into five gyms within the first 9 months. So I was like working my regular job and coaching at a different gym every single day. Um, Long story short, I ended up leaving my like regular job and just saying, "Hey, I'm going to coach full time." I made that decision after my dad passed in 2015. Um, he passed of cancer, and like he was an engineer, and I watched him like work himself to death, and I was like, "All right, well, I don't like want to do that, so I'm just going to figure out whether this is like truly marketable and truly something we can do." Um, I was in five gyms in Florida. When my dad passed, my wife and I moved back up to Michigan. And I had Optimus rolling at this time. We were like a 52 person club at the time, like around 2015. We had a junior world qualifier that we went to Seville, Georgia in a couple different like nationals and youth and things like that. Like we medaled at youth, we medaled at juniors,
Damn.
all of that stuff. I moved back to Michigan with like this 52 person club, and it condensed to eight because like I kept it 100%. I'm like, you guys are looking for people to be, if you're looking for a coach to be in front of you, I clearly can't be that dude. I got to go back
Right.
up. I got to help my mom out. My wife was having some health issues at the time. And I was driving up and I asked this guy that was opening up this weightlifting gym. And he was like, I can hire you, but I don't know how I'm going to pay you. And I was like, okay. So I think he was paying me like $250 a month or something like that, but he put me on 80% commission. So I'm like, okay. Then if 80% commission's the goal, I'm going to work 7 days a week for as long as it takes. And I think I ended up becoming like 60 to 70% of that gym's revenue.
Wow.
So we ended up renegotiating,
Of
obviously, because
course.
like he was going to go under
Yeah.
if he would have continued to pay me. Um, so we renegotiated. Yeah, Optimus is like growing as like a subsidiary club, like basically in Florida. Like I'm running this remote style club while I'm working in another club, growing both. Long story short, I started getting into some high schools here and there in the time around 2019, like COVID. Uh, my wife was pregnant at 19 weeks. She had a brain aneurysm and she ended up having 3 brain surgeries, one while pregnant. They're both okay. My son's okay. She's okay. But she ended up having a brain surgery while 19 weeks pregnant, hospitalized to 34 weeks. And then my son was born early, stayed in the NICU for 70 days.
Wow.
Within that time frame, I got fired 3 weeks after my wife had brain surgery from like the club I was at. Whatever, we were going different directions. It is what it is. I wish I would have known it, or I wish the scenario would have happened a different way. But like, basically, I hit up everyone on my phone that was tied to me, and I'm like, I don't know how we're gonna do this, but we'll figure it out. We were in a parking lot for 6 months. I was paying this CrossFit gym just for me to drag my equipment out to a parking lot. We ended up sending a team to a national championship in Detroit. And we ended up taking fourth as a female team with it and not even having a full roster. Like we were just hitting on like all cylinders. We ended up finding the gym that Optimus Barbell is at now, which like that's 5 years for here, right? So like from today's date till like then is 5 years. We've exploded from like being in a parking lot to having a charity coffee company that we donate to the charity that helped my wife and I out while like we were in the hospital phase and things like that. Shameless plug, Ground Control Coffee Roasters, Optimus Blend for that. We ship nationwide. It's delicious. Cheers. Um, we have the facility that I'm in now. This is Optimus Sports Performance and Training Center. We grew to like 112 person weightlifting club, which we've condensed down since that because like realistically, as we grew our sports side of it, we've had to make decisions on like where our revenue streams are going to come into, and I didn't want it to be 100% weightlifting. So right now we're about 27% weightlifting as our like revenue stream. But we have 2 locations now, a charity coffee company. We're in 4 different high schools as strength coaches. We coach 37 total sports. We're in 2 universities, University of Michigan, Rochester University. I was invited to the Detroit Lions facility about 3 years ago when we've been kind of flirting back and forth with what this looks like. So I go there every once in a while, or I'm like going to be going there every once in a while and shadowing and doing like basically Olympic weightlifting coaching at the NFL facility. I did that in the past. Um, and then just like kind of hammering the needle every day. So that was like the last 10 years essentially.
So not much has gone on, I guess, the last
Yeah,
10 years.
no,
You
it's
kind of got into
pretty,
weightlifting casually and then strolled
it's
through to
pretty
where you're
chill.
at now. Sold a
Yeah,
couple
like
coffees. You were a
that's
barista?
it.
Is that what I got out of that?
Yeah, very low trauma, like, easy life situations, like, oh, my house got robbed, like while my wife was in the hospital. It was crazy. And I was living like it's nuts. Like my house got robbed, my dad passed, my brother passed, my like I literally like was sitting there of like I would wake up every morning and I'm like, listen, someone signing me up for like who can take the most shit award. Excuse my language. I don't know if you use
Yeah.
that language
No,
here or
we
not,
use the
but
language.
all right. But
We
I was
encourage
like,
it.
I'm like, I am drowning. And people are coming up to me like, dude, you're killing it. I wish I was you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, cool.
You know,
Yeah,
that's a funny thing because I think probably all three of us could sit here and relate to that kind of like what you just said, just business wise. I mean, like you're doing 100 things, and a lot of times it's like when you're starting out, you're doing 100 things probably not in the right way, obviously, because you're trying to piece together an income or you're trying to survive, and everyone sees it from the outside. The best analogy I ever heard about running your own business is it's like you're riding on top of a lion and everyone's watching you like, holy shit, that guy is so brave. What a badass. And all you're thinking is, if I fall off of this, I'm going to die.
yeah,
It's going to kill me. And I just have to hold on for my life. And so it's like, there's a ton of that going on. But
yeah.
that's a
That's like,
crazy,
it-
crazy story you've got.
like people are like, dude, you're killing it. You're doing this, and like literally, it's like there was times where I'm like, showering was a hard thing to do,
Wow.
or like someone would send me a text message, what does this video look like? And that text message would feel like heavy because I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I have to respond to this person.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have to do my job. But like one of our employees asked me, this was like last week or something like that. She was like, how do you find the motivation to do all this stuff? And I'm like, I'm not trying to turn this into like a Jocko or like a David Goggins podcast or anything, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I wasn't given a choice. Like
Yeah.
my wife was in the hospital, she couldn't work, like there was no one else to run to. Like I looked at it of like, hey, this is the only option. And like I'm in therapy at this time because like I'm losing my mind like outside of like work, putting on my fake face and everything. And when my therapist had like the first discussion with me, he was like, "All right, well, like we're gonna diagnose you with PTSD, severe depression, severe anxiety," and I'm like, "That's impossible." I'm like, "That can't happen to me. It's impossible." He was like, "Well, like you go through a lot of fucked up shit, dude." And I was telling basically this girl that does like all of our operation stuff. I was like, "This is not based on motivation. Motivation is nice, like it really is." But my personal goal is I really do want to be one of the best to do this. And it's obsession. There is no balance. I will find some sort of balance when I reach my goals, I guess I could say, of like once I reach my goals, then I can become a little bit more balanced in regard to like my life balance, I guess, into that, like work and play and things like that, because like literally all I'm trying to do is be the best person that I can be, so I can be the best, so I can show up for I can give my family the best possible version of me, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
And
funny.
like it
Like
just is what it is.
yeah, you started with saying how like you watch your dad work himself to the bone in engineering, and my assumption would be that you work 3x as hard as you used to in your other engineering job, but your why is more. Like you just care more about what you're doing now, and like one of the things I often see with like a lot of just all entrepreneurs, but especially like fitness, in the fitness sort of sports realm, it's like if you want it more because you had to have it, like you had to have it in the sense where failure wasn't an option to you. And for other people, I find like if failure is an option, like they don't have the grit to get through the hard times. They'll kind of give up after the first or second blow to their trajectory. Um, and so like that's where I'm like, you are able to push through because you had to push through. It was a requirement, right?
Yeah, there was like, you know, as as a kid, like you rely on your dad, right? Like it's like one of those things to where like I knew if hard times came, right? Like, hey, being in college and being a college athlete and not being able to have NIL or anything like that or transfer or things like that, like my bank account would hit like triple zero and things like that. And I'm like, Dad, I need $20 to like buy McDonald's, but I'd buy like a case of Busch Light or whatever. But like, um, it was like when it came to the point to where like, okay, I'm the guy in this, I'm now the man in this family. And like not being there wasn't a choice of like to be ready or not. Like I'm in this decision, like it is what it is. There is no turning back. And it came to the point where like, okay, like I always kind of heard people talk about like this burn the ships mentality and things like that. And I'm like, but you have like a million different options. Like burn the ships in regard to like running your gym or things like that. I'm like, you can sell,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You could like quit, you can go do something else. But like when my wife was hospitalized and there was like, and my dad was gone and my, like, I'm not relying on my mom for any of that type of stuff. Like, I'm trying to figure out, okay, like now I need to figure out what type of man I'm going to be. Like, what type of man am I going to be to my family? What type of man am I going to be to my business? And like, what is my legacy going to be? And as I started to like evolve in terms of like, I had to tighten up the circle around me, specifically business. Like, we were hemorrhaging money because we like I was the only one coaching, but I was employing 5 people. Like there wasn't a lot of hard conversations being happening. We weren't pushing the needle. So I went from this person of like kind of like I'm everyone's hero to being like the villain very quickly of like, well, you've changed. You're no longer, you're no longer going to the bar with us. You're no longer doing
Yeah.
this. You're no longer doing that. And I'm like, I, yeah, but like
Yeah.
just because, like I'm a firm believer of like if we're not evolving, like as a leader, as a staff, as a whatever, like why would my team evolve? Like why like it doesn't make any sense. So if you think that I'm an asshole because like I'm making my mental health better or like my business better, then like why are you still working for Ford? Or why are you still working for GM? Or why are you still working for people that like if you died tomorrow, they could care less about you?
I have a question for you, and maybe just in general is like, how much do you feel like there's a lot of this? I think there's coaches that get into this stuff. There's people that get into it and they end up in a business situation because they loved coaching or they loved weightlifting, and then the next like logical steps are you can't just say, hey, you know what, I did it and now I got to move on and I go get a corporate job or I go do something. So you kind of stick with it, and it's like this thing that evolves from, call it passion, hobby, whatever, into your livelihood. But it's almost like people kind of don't make that change where they break from this is a thing I do because I love it and it fulfills me to be a weightlifter, power lifter, whatever. And now I'm a coach and that fulfills me, to I'm a business person and I have to run an organization, I have to run a business. And there's a distinct line between professionalism and like this like it's a common thing is like people say this thing like we're family, right? It's like a family here. And that can be from everything. That can be from the client to you, that can be from you to your employees, whatever. And that blurriness there makes it really hard for coaches to feel, or business people to actually do their job. And they don't realize it. Where you might be in a spot where people are sending you text messages randomly in the evening at night, and you as the owner know that I have to deliver. But if I don't send this, it's like taking away from my time, whether it's my family or personal, or just blurs boundaries. But you do it anyways because you think that it's the family thing, or it's the, oh, I got to deliver the service. And you can't set up boundaries. And the end result is like it erodes all the stuff you're doing. Do you feel like there's a, a serious disconnect with people? They have a hard time breaking that, setting up that boundary, I guess, but breaking away from that. It's my passion and I let everyone kind of just do whatever they need and take whatever they need from me, or I give so much, instead of saying, hey, these are the hours, send the message during then, because it's just too hard for them to say no because they're making barely enough to survive. So like every person's important, and they're afraid if they say no to somebody, they're going to quit. And then it's like, how am I making rent this month and that kind of thing. And that
Oh
just kind
yeah,
of
I mean,
bleeds down the rest of the way.
yeah, dude. Like there was a there's like I would say probably a 4-year span where I was accessible 24/7.
Yeah.
You sent me like, you know what I mean? Like, especially like before I got my head straight after all like the traumatic events and things like that. Like my normal night was sleeping like 2 hours. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So like it just is what it is. Like I was up, but I would tell myself like I'm only a good coach because I'm available,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm like, it got to the point, and it really was like when I left the Detroit Lions facility like 4 years ago for the first time, like when the head strength coach, Coach Mike Clark, and a couple of the other coaches were like, we like what you're saying with like breaking down the movements. We haven't heard it like this, yada, yada, yada. We're basically going to steal your stuff. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, you know, like it didn't hit me until I got in the car and I like sat there, you know, shed a few tears and everything because I felt like, okay, I'm there, right? Like I am respected outside of this realm. And I had to tell myself, like, I can't just be getting lucky anymore.
Mm-hmm.
This has to be a product of I
Yep.
have worked my ass off for a decade plus, but I would have like, especially when I was going out, maybe like going to dinners with like people or going to a bar or whatever, going out for people's birthday and things like that. Like, you know, the family scenario, you know, it's cool to like think of, right? But like, what are those people saying behind your back in those text messages? You know,
Well,
like when you point someone out and you say that effort is not enough, what do people say about you? And like, I found some things that people were saying behind my back that were calling me brothers and family and things like that. So the decision was easy for me in regard to setting boundaries because I was like, if I don't set a boundary, I'm going to fail my family. And if I fail my family, then none of this matters.
to your point, Max, too, and this is something like I've dealt with and like more even more recently in the last few years. So like because I went from coach to like more business owner, coach second to don't even really coach anymore and just run business. And when I started my gym, like I was there at all hours. I was there late at night. I'd train with people, like just even with myself training next to them. And then there was this kind of phase switch of, okay, I got more organized. I started training like midday. People didn't see me as much. I started going home at more normal hours, still like 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, whatever. But like, and then there's the rumblings of, oh, Zach doesn't care anymore. Like Zach, me, Zach, this Zach,
No, I've heard
he
it
doesn't
too.
care
It's
anymore.
the same.
He's not bought in. Meanwhile, like they don't see me showing up here at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., or 8 a.m. like on different days to just get, or on a Sunday, I cleaned our entire storage closet for 5 hours. Like the work doesn't get seen. But yeah, that exact thing. It's like I find that getting from zero like gym members to let's say 80 is just this like grit and grind. At 80, you have like kind of proof of concept. This thing works. And then you get to a point, and Alex Hermosi actually talked about this in a podcast. He was like, and then you get to a point where you're actually doing okay and you're surviving and heads above water. And then he had a time where he then rolled into his gym after having years of sleeping on the couch in the gym. And the members are like, oh, there's the big guy. He's too good for us. And he's like, but you rooted for me. Like I thought you were on my
Yep.
team. I thought you wanted this for me. But when it's no longer convenient for them, they switch on you. And like that for me personally has been like heartbreaking to have to go through that. People who I thought were like my ride or dies that were going to be clients with us forever, that I thought they supported not just my gym, but Zach, phase switch. And you realize, oh, okay, like we're all expendable and like they're only going to be my friend if the relationship benefits them more than it benefits me. And as soon as that changes to maybe even being comparable, they move on to the next guy who I see them go to a gym that's just started up where someone coaches in there with them every day, and they'll go through the same thing. But that has been a really tough thing. And to your point, Max, like I think that there's many coaches, gym owners out there that think like that's the secret sauce is you have to just be in there 24 hours a day, just doing everything, but it's not sustainable. It's not scalable. And then the question really is like, well, then how do you keep that going as you start to scale? And I've even struggled with that. But I think that's just such an interesting point. This needs to be built in a sustainable fashion if it is to be a real business that can stand on its own 2 feet. But I think for some reason in our industry of business, it's seen differently. Like
Yeah.
we don't treat it like it's a business or job, and clients don't treat it that way either. They think it's just fun hobby thing that we just decide to do and we're just going to grind forever.
I I will say that I think there's my personal belief on this now has shifted to like there needs to be an establishment of what you're all about. So like we kind of went through a bit of stuff in the gym over the last few months, and I basically sat down. I was like, look, we need to put first and foremost like performance in weightlifting and powerlifting that's why we're here. Getting people qualified for the next meet, getting them to the next meet, their technique, their numbers, that's the number one job here. And we need to convey to people that that's all we care about is you came in here to be a XYZ, a weightlifter, or a powerlifter. We're going to qualify like and quantify what that means and then push for that. There can't be a gym that exists for the sake of a clubhouse. And I think the sad thing is that's probably the way it should be, is that like this is a service and we're providing you, hey, we're trying to get you to this thing. You chose why you wanted to do this. We don't really care. You know, we understand why you want it, but like we can't be the therapist and we can't be here for building on the reason you're here. We have to build the lifter themselves. But I think there's a reality where a lot of coaches, like Zach said, like they feel they need to be in there. And then what happens is they start to shift they start optimizing everything in the business around keeping people like a cult, like keeping people invested because we're all, we're all outsiders. And so we're all outsiders. And that means that we have to stick together and that you need to stay here as a member. And all of the lifting and the training and that stuff is like not even on the front page. It's just like, kind of this like reestablishing that like the fact that you should be here is all related to emotions and the fact that I'm here and I'm like your dad or your mom or whoever. And like, and so it's like you lose sight of the fact that the real thing is the service and we're coaches to try to elevate your performance. And it's like a tactic for sure. And I think that happens a lot. And it's like people gravitate to that because one, it's easy to do that. It's easy to build that into it. The problem is if you don't want that, you're ending up in a place where like Zach said, you're trapped and you're just like focused on everyone's emotions and managing it. And you'll never make everybody happy and you'll never make everybody feel like, they're the most important, and then it's just going to fall apart,
It's impossible to sustain everyone's feelings and happiness. Like, I have a hard time with just like my own family's like maintaining that and keeping everything going in the right direction. But like I've used this probably since 2012 when I didn't have a brick and mortar. I was just kind of in places. I'm like, Optimus as an entity is a competition style gym.
Yeah.
I don't care what you compete in. I don't even care if you actually compete, to be honest, but you should know exactly the type of energy you're going to get when you're walking in here and the coaching. Like, I don't care if you are just starting, like, these are the way we like to warm up. This is our focus. This is how we approach platform stuff. This is how we approach things on a field. Like, so it's like, it's taking almost like my college football mentality of like, I didn't, I went in with 63 freshmen. I graduated with 18 seniors. I didn't make it that way because I wasn't the best athlete or anything like that. It was just, I knew what my like quote unquote superpower was. Like, my superpower was if you're going to take 2 steps, I'm going to try to take 2.5. Like, especially I want to win. I want to start. I want to be that dude that gets the ring. I want to be that guy that wants to be at the top. And I've like taken that into coaching. And when I would try to make everyone happy, not everyone wants that. And that's completely fine. Like, no one wants to be I would say 99% of people hate it when I adjust them doing crossover symmetry.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm just warming up. Oh, cool. Stack your core, brace your shoulder blades down. Like, we're doing this correctly. Like, I just don't want to see you have like lumbar lordosis while you're doing this. Like, I want you to do this correctly because if you do this correctly, you're going to do the next thing correctly. Then that's going to spill over into something else. And that energy or that vibe is going to take over into not only our locations, but when I go to high schools or colleges or or when we go to nationals or things like that. Like the best compliments I got out of Colorado Springs were a handful of coaches were like, "Your team just looks professional,"
Yeah.
and I was like,
That's
"Thank
cool.
you."
So one of the things you mentioned earlier too, so you had like 5 like support staff that weren't revenue generating, and you were the coach generating all the revenue in the first rendition of your gym. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And now I'm assuming you've changed that, because as we know, like if staff isn't generating revenue, it's fixed costs. Like, there's certain plays we can make there, but ultimately, like, most of our team should probably be revenue generating. How did you go about making that shift, and how has it shifted? What has it shifted to now?
Well, I fired everybody. And
Classic move.
within firing people, I lost like the athletes that were tied to them because like I was an asshole or whatever that may be. And I like would look at people when they were telling me like, I'm leaving your gym because you fired my coach. And I go, okay, that's fine. I would have people that would be like, well, isn't it your job to deal with tough athletes? I'm like, no, my job is to teach you what to do, like not to do any of this. So like
Yeah.
I scrapped I scrapped it all, and I went in my garage and I like basically wrote out a flow chart of what I want Optimus to look like. I opened up hiring. Um, I had 32 people apply. I hired 0. And then I messaged this guy. His name is Aaron Scott. He's now the director of sports performance and development for our companies. I've known him for like a decade, but he didn't apply. And I was like, what the? I called him in my backyard because my wife actually was like, why don't you call Aaron? And I called him and I was like, yo, dude, what the fuck? Why didn't you apply? And he was like, I don't know, just didn't get around to it. And I made him an offer in the backyard of like, hey, I need someone that's going to be basically my guy in the trenches with me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he also brings pillars of knowledge that I don't have. So with hiring him, I increased my pillar of knowledge by just having him in the building. Energy, his understanding of certain things, his way to ebb and flow into different markets. I basically leveled up exponentially. And I would, for the first 6 months, I would like call him randomly and I would be like, hey, dude, you're pouring a lot into my business. Like, why? This feels uncomfortable for me because I never had someone pour in like that. And
Someone who really cared.
Yeah.
dude, yeah, and he gave a shit and he poured in and there was, I don't know, probably the 10th time I asked him, he was like, stop asking me this damn question. And we work really well together because it's not about our ego. Our end game is just about like, we want Optimus to be on top and to be like this, for a lack of a better term, like I'm a real big like Bane and Batman fan. So like this like League of Shadows like moniker of like coming up out of this like hole. And we don't have to talk about certain things. We don't have to market ourselves like everyone else, but we are going to like legitimately just shove production down your throat. We're going to win championships. We're going to help schools win championships. We're going to win national titles. We're going to do American records, unofficial world records. We're going to help coach Olympians. And then when we do flip our marketing to like a little bit more mainstream type thing, we have so much replicable data that is like we've replicated this at this level, at this level, at this level, at this
Mm.
level. So the first thing was like getting a second in command that like if I'm not around, if I'm traveling, I know my gyms are going to operate like a business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he has been honestly a godsend in regard to like I wouldn't be able to run 2 locations, put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like I restructured it to like, all right, I'm the owner, but I have directors, director of Olympic weightlifting operations, director of sports performance and development, general manager, and then support staff or coaches, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
front desk person. So like I tiered it out in terms of like, all right, I don't want to be getting the text messages that Susie and Sophie are like got upset at the gym with each other or like, you know what I mean? Like someone called someone out and they're upset. I want y'all to handle that shit and I like, go from there. I like thought of it, okay, if our directors are going to be on top, it's our job to locate 30 to $40,000 annual contracts. That is our job now. Support staff is now based on members. And we're still growing in the aspect of like, I think our coaches can market a little bit better. And we're working on that with them in regard to like breaking the fear of like, oh, I don't want to put out any content and someone, it's going to look dumb. 99% of the shit that I do is dumb. Like I would say, like, or like whatever that may be. Like I'm not trying to market based on someone else giving me an opinion on it. I am marketing because I find it valuable. And if someone else finds it valuable, they'll like it. If not, they can either unfollow or go the next direction. I don't care. So like we are evolving our marketing structure a little bit, but we flipped it to the standpoint of like we are actually going to be leaders and not just staying in this gym being the people that you want us to be. We're going to be the people that we respect.
Definitely. One of the things I really wanted you to share too on this podcast was something you've done really well is getting into schools and getting some of these annual contracts. And I talk with a lot of coaches that want to do more of that stuff. They don't know where to start. What advice would you give those folks that do want to, they already have something established, but now they want to break into more of the team training stuff with schools and building those relationships, getting those deals? How do you go about doing that?
Great, because I actually had 3 calls this week about this, and I just do it. Like one of the guys was like, "Listen, I paid a business professional $30,000, and I learned more from you in 30 minutes." And I was like, "Well, maybe I should just like do that on the side, like
Yeah.
whatever." But like, I tell them, I'm like, literally in like 2015, 2016, every high school was like slamming the door in my face, including my alma mater. That was like we're in like a Hall of Fame team here, like, and you're slamming the door in my face and things like that, like whatever. So there was a high school that was basically the rival of my alma mater, and I met him at a bar, and it was 2 sports, football and track. And they say we need strength conditioning. Will you be the guy? Yeah, it's totally. I just want my foot in the door. They were paying me, I think it was $350 a month. And I was working 5 days a week for like 4 hours a day, minimum. And I looked at it, I'm like, all right, I need to work myself into a job here. So within the first day there, we had 13 kids show up, and the football coach at the time was like, "This is the biggest turnout we've had," and I'm like, "We're about to get smacked all season long," and we did. Like we were weak, we weren't good, whatever. But the first semester rolls by, 2 sports turn into 5 sports. Um, then we went on the discussion of like, I want to make more money. So I repackaged it differently at that high school to where I'm like, I want every program to pay me $1,500. Simple, right? But I thought like if I can get, I think it's like 8 sports. If I can get 8 sports, that's $1,500 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, I leveled up from 350. Cool. So I packaged that as like, okay, each sport team is paying me X amount and I'm doing 2 hours a day or whatever that may be. I went to the next high school, that up to $42,000 annual contract because like I just threw a number out there and they didn't balk on it whatsoever. And like I got in the car and called my wife and I was like, I literally just tripled our revenue on it. Now, the crappy part was like the high school is 40 miles away.
Mm.
Is what it is. Like I was there for 2 years and I'm like, all right, they won more games, injury rates went down. They did a summer program of like 150 kids. Didn't even matter you're playing a sport. All I was trying to do was replicate the model and like honestly make more revenue. Third high school hits. This is where it became kind of interesting because the athletic department was going to pick up the bill. And this wasn't happening at the time. So the athletic department was like, we can pick up 60% of the bill. So I I repackaged how I sell it. I was like, all right, if I want to make 42 grand or 40 some odd grand or whatever, and this high school is going to pick up, the AD department is going to pick up 50% or 60% or whatever that may be. I took that 60% out of it and then say, okay, every sport program owes me 750. That's like a no-brainer, right? Like no sport program is going to balk on 750. Now, now I'm at the point to where I'm not going to athletic departments. I'm going to superintendent and boards.
Mm.
So now I'm like, I've tiered up to like, all right, I get to this decision maker as quickly as possible. Now, it'll become official like a week or so, but like at the private school I'm coaching at, like I'll be an employee there. I'll have benefits. I'll have like basically I'm going to be underneath the athletic director and coordinate out through all the other coaches and coach 2019. So now like I've just leveled up everything to that scenario. My biggest the biggest piece of advice that I can give people, football teams are always going to push back because they have a football coach. Like I'm a college football player. I was ranked second in the country for offensive tackles, and I still have football teams push back on me. Like I don't like know what I'm doing
Mm.
until like you know what I mean. Like until they get a weekend or whatever, and they're like, all right, this guy like at least has he's decent at least at this. So I was telling this guy on the call yesterday. I'm like, if you think volleyball is the weakest team there, attack volleyball. Infiltrate the weakest team, make them dominant, and then everyone else will take note. I will also say get contracts in place immediately.
Yeah.
Do not wait on contracts. I was burned by basically I was burned by my alma mater for 10K. Basically because I had the wrong person sign the contract, right? And I'm like, you have my picture up in this hallway. Like I'm an all-state athlete from this place. I so you're gonna say I'm gonna work here for I'm gonna pay out my coaches that were there, and you're gonna stiff me for 10G. And I was like, okay, that's fine. You know, I complained about it for a day. I might have swore here and there. I might have not been the most professional on the last call, but like I immediately flipped it. I'm like, all right, if that's the way you're gonna do business, you're gonna hear from every time I line up a new high school, our attorney is gonna be on you immediately.
Yeah. I think I think just one point on contracts too is like you don't think of it when you're starting, when you're really small. And if you're doing this and the other thing about contracts is you have to understand contracts are a lot like this might go over people's heads, but it's a lot like writing a piece of software. Like you might have something in the contract that does something you didn't expect it to do because of the way you wrote it out, where it's like you should my advice just to tag on is like when you write a contract, make sure that it is something that protects both parties from the perspective of like there are explicitly stated requirements and explicitly stated you know circumstances if those requirements aren't met, and how to enter and exit the contract and all these things and how compensation, all this stuff has to be done so that you don't have any problems down the line, because there shouldn't be any emotion in it. It's like, hey, the contract says you're supposed to do X amount of this per month and you haven't, so like what's the ramification there? Like we don't pay, right, or whatever it is. And the other thing I would say is if you're new, like don't be afraid of contracts. Don't think that there's like some if you can't give another party a contract because you think they're gonna get scared or bail out, like that's a good thing. Like, you
It's
don't
not the
want to
right
be in business with
account.
somebody who doesn't like that. And
Yeah.
then have someone look it over. Like don't just write it yourself. Don't just chat GPT it. Pay the money for a lawyer. Like get it really well understood exactly what you're doing. Um, because in a lot of these things, you can get into a place where you have a contract that's like you could screw yourself and be like trapped in something, or at the very more benign situation, you could be in a contract where it's like it's impossible to enforce something that's vague. You have no explicitly stated like marketing requirements or like you got to do this or you got to do that. Like, and they're like, well, it doesn't say how many posts I need to make, so it's like
Hmm.
you don't have any enforcement. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Just
a
make
huge one.
everything clear so there's like zero emotion. It's
Yeah.
like I can't be upset, if I didn't write you're paying me on the 10th, and you don't pay me on the 10th, I can't be pissed off. But like there was a time at the gym, um, one of the high schools was like basically late on a payment. And so they were like, we're late on it. Like basically like they made a mistake. But it was one of those months where like we were in a down month and I needed that money to pay out staff, right? And I'm like, the entire gym knew I was pissed off because like I looked at my account, I didn't see the money, and I was unequivocally pissed. Like I remember Sophie coming up to me like and being like, are you okay? And I was like only coaching Sophie for like, I don't know, half a year or something like that at the moment. And she's never seen me like that before. And I'm like, do I not look fine? And she's like, no, you know, you look like you're about to like go murder someone. And I'm like, so I was like, all right, I'll step off the floor. I basically made a phone call and the superintendent like drove over a check,
Wow.
right? Because he was like, you've done so much. We fucked up. My fault. No worries. Like, I'll drive it over. And so he drove it over at like 9 at night and like put it in my mailbox, which I like, that to me was okay. That's respect at least, right? Like, it wasn't one of those things to where like, we made a mistake. We'll get to it next week. It was, hey, we made a mistake. Let's make this right. And I was like, okay, if you're going to do that for me over a mistake, I will pour into every single program. Like, I don't, you're going to see such high level, you're going to see such coaching that where like these kids are going to evolve, not just on the field, but suspension rates are going to go down. Their test
Wow.
scores are going to go up. We're going to set standards, right?
So because we got to start wrapping up here, but what I want to finish on is if you were to archetype out like a 3 year, because it sounds like with the school stuff, there's a longer time horizon if you want to do it right. And like what you've
Yeah.
done at scale, if there was a 3 year, and maybe three is too few, I don't know, but a 3 year plan for a coach who's like, I want to in 3 years be doing 50% of what Zach's doing, what would their process be in the 3 year plan if you were to sum it up into steps?
Are you referring to like sport, like high school type stuff?
Yeah.
I would say attack. I'm going to say obscure sports, but they're not obscure, but right, they're just normal sports, right? Attack sports that aren't getting attention. So if it's girls volleyball, for the example, attack girls volleyball and pour such effort into the coaching that not only that those like girls are loving what you do in the weight room in regard to making them better, but the parents take note. And as soon as the parents take note, it just, and so it's like attack one sport and give it 100%, and do not pull the kids out. Don't put them into your weightlifting club. Don't don't poach these athletes. Keep them in their sport. Like I have poached zero athletes into weightlifting from a youth or junior angle because that is a that is a zero win game because at the end of the day, weightlifting is very cyclical, and someone is going to get an NIL contract to play D1 volleyball for 40K if they're ranked top 20 in the country. You're not even going to get paid by USA weightlifting if you're not in the top
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like there isn't a lot, like weightlifting is a subset of strength conditioning. So if you're doing this to build your club and to build your name notoriety of weightlifting, just don't do it. Like if you're doing it to create a business structure that is replicated and undeniable in any aspect, then go attack a sport that is underserved, undervalued, undercommitted, and just send it full tilt. And you will easily have 6 to 10 sports within a year.
Wow.
Easily.
Nice.
Sounds like then step 2 is leveling up who you're speaking to, like what level of decision maker you're speaking with then.
Yeah, literally go from booster clubs or things like that. Once you get in the door, you knock that out, you're in with the athletic director. Now you got to meet the superintendent because at the end of the day, the board's going to make the decision on whether they're going to pay you X amount of money or if they're going to offset funds or things like that. Once you get into like being in board meetings or being a superintendent or being with athletic director, set up the flow chart, like
Yeah.
set up with them. I'm in the athletic director's office every single day. I walk in there, whether it's just to say hi, speak to the assistant, speak to the assistant athletic director. How are you doing? What do we need to do to make this program a D1 style program at this high school? Because that's, why are we doing it?
Yeah, I love that, man. Well, hey, we appreciate you being on today, dude. I feel like we need to film another episode because there's just so much more I want to talk about with you. And you've seen so much, you've so much different experiences through your evolution through business and, and fitness and sport. So we definitely need to have you back on, man. But hey, really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate the kind words. You guys are awesome. And, download Coach Logic. Get that done
Right.
because Optimus and the high schools are going to be on Coach Logic. We've already set that up with the board on both high schools, and we're rocking and rolling. If you're not tracking your high school's data, you're doing it wrong.
Yep.
Absolutely. And we didn't pay him to say that, just for the record.
No.
Check the mail, by the way.
They did buy 7 kilos of coffee from the coffee company.
Yeah.
Well, I love it, man. Thank you so much.
Sweet.